Hello everyone, and Dark Souls 3 has been out for a couple of weeks now, and we got some news from the man himself, Hidetaka Miyazaki. He was recently speaking to a Japanese magazine, I think it was GGN Gamer, and they asked him about what was going on in the future for the Souls series, and basically this is how he responded. I think it's time we take a step in a new direction. Development of a new IP has already begun. Alright, so for me, that's fantastic news. The fact that there's going to be a new IP, which I'm guessing is going to be a Souls game. Or at least a Souls-like game, like Bloodborne. Bloodborne wasn't actually a Souls game, but, it's pretty much the same type of game, same kind of mechanics, just updated slightly for a new experience. But what does that mean for Dark Souls? We've already had 3 games in the series. The last one, as I just said, came out literally 2 weeks ago. What's going on there? And the answer he gave, I think, pretty much tells us that we shouldn't expect to see another Dark Souls game for a long time, if not, ever at all. I mean, here's exactly what he said about it. There's absolutely no plan right now for any sequels, spin-offs or tie-ins, but I can't say for certain the possibility is 0%. For example, if a From Software developer came to me 5 years from now and begged me, please let me do another Dark Souls, then I won't rule out the possibility or to let my subordinates start a new project. What is certain to me now, to me personally, Dark Souls is over. So that for me is really interesting because he basically draws a line between his own desires and what other people might want. And I think he's making it very clear. For him personally, he does not want to work on any more Souls games. At least not any more Dark Souls games. He's done 3, and I think he feels that's enough for the Dark Souls series, and he wants to move on to new things. But of course, From Software is a business. There might be a time when they feel like, oh, why don't we bring the Dark Souls series back? And that could happen. So I don't think he wanted to. Well, I think he didn't want to close the door entirely. Just in case somebody came back to him and said, "Oh, you were not going to make any more Souls games. Why are you making another Souls game?" That's just the way the internet works these days. He goes on to say, and I'm paraphrasing here, that there's nothing wrong with having a series that is successful in the long run like Dark Souls has been, but they want to do new creative things, and they want to move into what they regard as uncharted territory for a new challenge basically. And interestingly enough, when he was pressed on whether this new territory might be related to Demon Souls, he says that basically we want to make something new. And he seemed quite firm about that, so I don't think we're going to see a Demon Souls sequel or remake anytime soon. That's a shame though. I'll put a link to the translated version of the interview in the description, along with a couple of other articles as well, so you guys can have a look for yourselves. So here's my thoughts on all this. First of all, like I indicated before, I think it's a really good thing that we're going to be getting a new IP. Now, the reason I think this is basically, if you look back into the history of the Souls games, it got started with a single game, Demon Souls. Demon Souls came out in 2009, and it was published by both Sony Japan, and by Atlus. Atlus was the international publisher for the game. And what you'll notice is that when Dark Souls came out in 2011, it had a completely different publisher, Bandai Namco. Now, there are a lot of similarities between Dark Souls and Demon Souls. Obviously, the word Souls in the title, and the mechanics of the two games were very, very similar. But obviously, what was different was the game world itself. Demon Souls was about a place called Boletaria, whereas Dark Souls was set in Lordran. And this difference in setting was obviously due to IP restrictions. Sony, I think, owns the Demon Souls IP, while Atlus owns the rights to distribute the IP internationally. And so obviously what happened in the case of the time between Demon Souls and Dark Souls is that From Software, due to probably like the complexities of dealing with multiple companies, decided that instead of trying to develop a sequel to the successful Demon Souls, they might be better off just taking the mechanics of the game and transferring off to a new IP, which meant that they had to actually create a new game world. Now for me, the process of having to create a new game world is extremely important, more so for From Software than most other companies in my opinion. And the reason is basically because I think that From Software have made their best games when they were forced to develop a new IP, like they were between Demon Souls and Dark Souls. And also, due to the nature of From Software games, having a new world to explore is very, very important. What I mean by that is the nature of Souls games, quote unquote, is that it involves a lot of exploration. A lot of people have likened going into a Souls game and learning what's going on in the world to like learning a new language. Initially, you don't speak the language, you have no idea what the game or the world is trying to tell you. All you get is little bits of information as you can work out. You might be able to work out a few words here and there. And in the Souls games, the lore that you're presented with, comes to you in bits. And over time, if you really dig into it and if you work hard, you get a much better grasp of what's going on, just like if you put effort into learning a new language. And it's that process of learning what's going on, about understanding the world, that that makes the game, the world, so enjoyable in my opinion. And whenever From Software makes a more traditional direct sequel like Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 3, they lose some of that creativity, because all you're really doing in Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 3 is exploring the same world you explored in Dark Souls 1. And obviously the world itself won't have the same impact it did when you first started playing the game, because in Dark Souls 1, Lordran and the world around it was completely new, whereas in Dark Souls 2 you pretty much knew everything that was already going on. It was just like a what happened afterwards. There was a new kingdom called Dandran Lake, but souls were the same, humanity as an item was the same. Basically, generally the world itself was pretty much the same place, just sometime in the future. And Dark Souls 3, which I think actually, I never really liked Dark Souls 2, but Dark Souls 3 I quite enjoy. I think it's a much better game than Dark Souls 2, but that still suffers from the same problem. It's basically Dark Souls Part 2. It's basically just describing what happened afterwards. And while the game mechanics themselves are still a lot of fun, Dark Souls 3 has great levels that are really intricate. It's a bit simpler than Dark Souls, but the game itself is actually very good. But in terms of from a lore and world perspective, there's not really that much to entice you, because like I said, you already know the basic story. There aren't any more huge mysteries to learn. I could be wrong. There could be something amazing in there that maybe ties the whole series together, or it's like a new revelation that completely flips on your head everything we thought we knew about Dark Souls and the world of Lordran. But I doubt that, and the way it's looking right now, it's probably very unlikely. But the point I'm trying to make is that because they're only making a sequel, they don't really have to stretch themselves, and that I think limits their creativity. And for us the player, because we already know the world, we already know what to expect, it kind of lessens our enjoyment. Now Dark Souls 2 came out in 2014, 3 years after Dark Souls, and like I said, I didn't really enjoy it as much as Dark Souls or Demon Souls, and I personally, after playing the game, was afraid that From Software had lost their mojo, so to speak. That was until Bloodborne came out. Bloodborne was released, completely new IP, and to be frank, it pretty much floored me. I really think the world in Bloodborne is the best From Software and Miyazaki have ever created, both from a lore and general world design and art point of view. I think it's fantastic. I think it's their best work and easily stands with Demon Souls and Dark Souls. So for me at least, it's obvious that whenever From Software iterate on one of their games in the series, i.e. create sequels for Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 3, they lose something in terms of their creativity and the world itself, because they made Bloodborne in pretty much the same time frame as Dark Souls 2. It was two separate teams working on each game, but still, it's the same company. Miyazaki, while he was directing Bloodborne, was still involved in Dark Souls 2, and obviously directed Dark Souls 3. But Bloodborne, in my opinion, from a world point of view, is a much superior game. And I think that's very, very telling. This is the best reason why we should all be excited about the new IP. Doesn't matter what it is, but I think that From Software have shown, from their record, that they're at their best whenever there's a new IP. And I personally have a lot of faith in Miyazaki and his team to actually, do it a fourth time, to come up with a new great game world that we're all going to love and enjoy as much as all the other games in the series. And I suppose we might as well just start speculating about what it's going to be. The biggest hint that's been dropped so far, it was actually by Miyazaki himself before Dark Souls 3 came out. Last year at some point he actually mentioned that he's interested in taking the series perhaps in a sci-fi direction. Now, he's also mentioned recently that he'd like to make another Armored Core game. So it might just be a reference to that. It might just, that might be something completely different. He wants to do another Armored Core game, and whatever this next Souls game is, it's going to be completely different. But personally, I wouldn't really put it past him to go in that direction. A lot of people are worried about that. They don't want the Souls games to become, something like, Call of Duty in space. The sword and shields have always been a mainstay in the Souls games, and nobody really associates science fiction with these things. But personally, I think it could work. First of all, we already have guns and other projectile weapons in Bloodborne, so they From Software have proven that they can quite easily meld guns into the series. So I'm not worried about that at all. Now, and further, if you look at some science fiction, for example Dune, the idea of using very high-tech weapons and swords can still work. In Dune, for example, people use swords, or at least knives, and the reason knives still exist in Dune, even though they've got laser weapons, is because people have personal shields which lasers can't actually get through, and so people are forced to use knives, move them through the shields, and so there's no reason why Miyazaki and his team couldn't try something similar with the next IP, assuming it is a sci-fi game. Miyazaki is known for dropping hints that just completely throw people off as to what his real intentions are. When he finished Dark Souls, he said he wanted to work on something a bit more light-hearted, and we ended up with Bloodborne. So that just could be him throwing us off into a completely dead end. Either way, I'm sure it's going to be fantastic. Okay, so yeah, that's all I really wanted to talk about today. Thanks for listening, guys. As usual, I will be doing a lot more Bloodborne videos. Might be doing some Dark Souls 3 videos as well, so stay tuned for that. Lore stuff, runs, and whatever I really fancy. So subscribe, and you'll get some more content pretty soon. Cheers, guys. Bye.